Hey Ben, how are you today?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Good. Hey, so after the spring game, Brett had talked about Luke's maturity and really kind of in all phases since I guess really the time you guys met. And in what ways has he matured? How do you see that day to day out of him?
That for me, this is the first time I've known Luke, so I know Brett's got a longer history with Luke. So he's got the preconceived notions of what he knew from recruiting him and before, but I've just known him since being here in January. And, he's a hard worker, which is good. It's kind of been teaching him, the expectations of how we're going to practice, how we're going to work here, but he's absorbed it and he's embraced it. And he's working his butt off trying to be a good player.
Obviously, he had a couple big plays, including the big touchdown on Monday. How have you seen him grow as a player since you guys got him 8 weeks, before the winter session and then into spring?
Yeah, he's grown, just in the blocking game and the passing game. There's still things he's got to work on a lot of things. There's a huge improvement that needs to happen with him, just from an effort standpoint, every single play, to pad level, to catching the ball one time. That's something we talk about all the time. To stop catching it twice when we throw you the football. But talent wise, he's got the ability. So it's just going to be a mentality for him that he wants to play hard on every single snap.
And if I could get one more, Brett has talked about a desire to have starters on some of those special teams units. Why is that important to you guys? I think that might be a change from what some of us are used to seeing here. What's the thought process behind that, and why is it important for you?
Usually your starters are going to be your best players. And if special teams are important as a team, we need to have some starters on special teams. Punt team and kickoff team, those are the first plays of a defensive series. And your return teams, if you're going to put the ball in the hands of an offensive player, you want to have good people in front of them blocking as well. So it just sets a tone, for your team. And I know, Coach B's talked about that. Covering kicks, that's going to be a huge part of being a good football team. So you got to have guys that buy in and that want to play on special teams.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Coach, I'm curious on the tight end front. You come into a situation with DJ Barker's played a lot of football and maybe has kind of all conference possibilities. Luke Ford was a top 100 recruit and has that same potential. Do you feel like you have two top end of the Big Ten tight ends on your roster?
I feel like I have a few really good tight ends. I don't know, whatever awards and stars, that none of that crap means anything. It just means, what you put in every day to get better. That's what we're focusing on. I'll let you guys decide who's all conference and, who gets the stars and the ribbons and the confetti at the end of the season. Who really cares? We just want to win football games, and we want to be productive football players. And that's what we put our focus on every day.
Well, let me ask it this way then. Do you think this can be a tight end focused offense? And I know that's not your call, and I know you're not the coordinator, but do you feel like, they can be an emphasis of this offense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just using your talents, kind of what we've been given here with the team we've got. Obviously DJ and Luke are two older guys, experienced guys that can give us a few things in the run game and the pass game. So we're going to use the guys that we've got, use their talents to help us be a good football team.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey Ben, good to see you. I know we're talking about Luke and DJ's catching abilities in the offense, but I think something that Brett mentioned to us either after the game Monday or on Wednesday was also the blocking elements of these guys. Obviously an important part of being a tight end. What did you see on that front in the spring game that you maybe liked or even didn't like necessarily?
Yeah, I think that those are the things we see as coaches that maybe didn't impress us a whole lot. There was a bunch of plays where we need to be better blocking. And you don't notice, you notice the one-handed catches, and you notice all the oohs and ahs from being out in space with the football. But when you get down to the nitty gritty part of football, we want to pound on people. We've got to get better, and we got one more practice tomorrow to get better this spring. and then take that focus into August as we get ready for a long football season this year.
Is that a matter of individual work, or is that a matter of just further getting that install down? What do you see as the key to improving in that regard?
It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of individual work. Obviously, I think at this point we've got at least a huge percentage of the scheme down. With what we're going to do, it's just kind of perfecting the skills we need, and the mentality and the effort you need on every snap, in order to win a Big Ten football game.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for doing this. I kind of wanted to ask about how you balance the use of a Daniel Barker, who obviously is really good split out, really good getting down the field in his passing routes, and then a Luke Ford, who's maybe not as gifted in that, but is maybe more gifted in the flat and getting open in short route situations. How do you kind of balance that within the offense, and how you set those guys up in 12 personnel, which I know you and Tony really want to run a lot of?
Yeah, you said it. You said it pretty well there. As you kind of use that reverse psychology on him. You tell Luke he's not good at something, he's going to be pissed off and want to get better at it. And DJ the same way. So you kind of play that against each other a little bit. And Luke wants to prove he's a great pass catcher, and DJ wants to prove he's a great blocker, because you're kind of telling those guys, hey, you're not good at this. And so that's kind of a fun game to play with those guys. But they know that, and they're both really hard workers. They've got big personalities, so. They're fun to coach that way. As long as they're working hard, we're going to have a lot of fun coaching them. They're going to have a lot of fun playing. So you got to use your strengths, and you got to build on your weaknesses, which they obviously have a lot of both right now. And we just got to keep building up those weaknesses to where they become a strength.
And then as you look at what each of those guys brings, how important is it to have those guys, really be successful in the things that they're good at now, but more importantly, how important is it for them to develop the weaknesses they have so you can get into the 12 personnel as much as you want to?
Right. I mean, that's what we're trying to do as a football team is build on all of our weaknesses, make them into something that can be used as a strength. So it's just continual day by day work we're going to keep doing.
Coach, I have a follow-up special teams question, probably a little longer question. So the previous staff went really heavy on coverage specialists, I'll say. At times last year, there were 6 of the 10 coverage guys on kickoff were walk-ons, 4 scholarship guys, and then a kicker. So, there's different ways to set that up. Some coaches like to save their starters. Some want to use their starters. Some want to take maybe a walk-on linebacker and say, hey, your role on this team is coverage units, and you're going to practice that every day and everything else. Personally, where do you fall on that spectrum? How do you view special teams and say opening kickoff of the Nebraska game, if it's coverage, how does the staff decide on the 10 guys who are going to be out there with the kicker?
Yeah, that'll be a staff discussion for sure. We want to have our best 11 out there every snap we can. Obviously, some of it comes with depth of a position as well. If you feel like you've got really good depth at corner, let's say, you're more willing to put a starting corner on a kickoff team in a certain scenario. I think you got to have scenarios where you've got some of your best defensive players ready to cover a kick at any moment in a game and a half in a game that way. So that's stuff we got to work through as a staff. If there's guys we need, you need to save their legs a little bit because they're playing every single snap on defense. You have that discussion as a staff. So it's got to be flexible for everybody. A lot of that stuff will come from Brett as we communicate depth charts and all that as we get closer to game time. But right now we're really just trying to find, and we're using every single person at practice is repping every special team. So we're going to find the best guys for each position, each group, and let that fall out in August as we get closer to game time.
I also have to ask the wind question, which I'm somewhat famous for around here, in that Champaign has some crazy winds. You'll have a game with 35-mile-an-hour winds out of the north, and you're punting one way, it's going to drop 15 yards short. You're punting the other way, it's going to sail 20 yards long. How on a game day, there have been different ways coaches kind of analyze that and set up their returners. Do you know of any processes or how you've treated the winds? I know, Colorado Springs isn't the least windy place on earth, and you've probably had to deal with this before. So, how do you approach wins and special teams?
I mean, use it to your advantage when you can. Do your research before a game and know where it's coming from, where it's going to be in the second half, where is it going to be in the fourth quarter. Just continually checking on that if the winds are going to shift, and really communication with your players. We got a few older specialists, and they always want to tell you which way they want to kick. Sometimes as a coach, you just say, "Hey, you're kicking it left. Like, deal with it." But sometimes you want to definitely use the wind to your advantage if it's going to be help going left to right or right to left. So just continual communication and research on what it's going to be like at game time. And knowing our stadium, our stadium's unique, and that you got a high side on the press box side, you got a lower side away from the press box, you got open corners. So getting to know that a little bit during spring, practicing in there each day, is just learning the wind. We use that to our advantage as much as we can.
Good, thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, if I could follow up real quick on a comment you just had. In terms of you learning the wind and how that all works, how much of a help has it been for you in that process, having James DeCourt a super senior, having Blake Hayes a super senior, who kind of understand how that works inside the stadium?
Yeah, I think if you could walk in every single year and have a sixth-year senior, you'd take it as a coach. So just fortunate to have those guys for 1 year here coming up, and they're fantastic in how they communicate and their maturity and how they lead. And I think they're guys that people look up to on our football team, even though they're specialists. So they've been great, in their communication with me and with our coaching staff will be fantastic for how we play this fall.
Anything else?